or by time Allah swore, all of the human beings are in a loss, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ عَمَلُوا, except those who believe, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and they do righteous actions, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, and they join together in the teaching of truth, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, and they support each other in patience. Patience is very important. You are not going to achieve faith, righteous actions, or calling to truth, whether it's internally or externally, without suffering. So patience is very important. Okay? Now what we have to understand is that courage in the battlefield has certain qualities. Right? What's the courage in the battlefield? Usually the courage in the battlefield, okay, is when you're under fire. It's a difficult moment, right? The enemy's attacking you, you're under fire. Well, the courage is not when you're sitting drinking tea and cooking whatever it is in the top. That's when you're under fire. That's the time for courage, right? But in terms of the internal struggle, the courage in this internal struggle against al-hawa, because don't have any illusions, it's a battle. It's a full-on scale battle, right? Is the moment of forbearance. It's that moment when the desire is strong. When the desire is strong, okay? That is the moment of courage. That is the moment when you have to stand firm. Okay? And in fact, brothers and sisters, it's those moments of overcoming those inclinations and those desires that are going to be the best moments in your life. And I refer you again back to Friday's lecture about that. Okay? If you were there, you'll be understanding what I'm talking about, the flow experience that the psychologists, they talk about. Okay? And the excellent outcome. What is the excellent outcome? Okay, of withholding and controlling your al-hawa, your desires. Okay? The excellent outcome, well, there are actually many excellent outcomes in this life, but the excellent outcome, of course, brothers and sisters, is paradise. That is the reward for controlling your desires. It is the most excellent outcome, and it's not far away. Don't imagine that the day when we meet Allah is going to be far away. No, it's not far at all. Indeed, it is close. Okay? These are the things we need to think about, brothers and sisters. We need to go through these things, think about them, and contemplate about them, because it is all going to reinforce our ability to combat our desires. Okay, what's another issue? Let's think about this one. The pain of following al-hawa, the pain of following your passions and your desires, exceeds the pleasure from giving into it. Yes, we're not going to deny that there is a type of pleasure in following al-hawa. If there was no pleasure in it, it wouldn't even be a temptation, right? Of course there is a pleasure in it. But this is the reality. This is why you have intellect, and this is why you have deen. Because the intellect and your deen tells you that that pleasure is temporary. And indeed, and in reality, the pleasure that you experience is nothing compared to the pain that is going to result from it. And we can find that in many instances. What is the pain of drinking alcohol? Evil. Right? Is the pain really, is the benefit, the momentary enjoyment of drinking alcohol, is it really worth the headache? Is it really worth the sickness? Is it really worth the alcohol poisoning? Is it really worth the liver disease? Is it really worth the destruction that it causes to yourself, to your family, to your friends, to society? The pain that is resulting from this is huge. The pleasure in comparison to it is minute. Adultery. What is the pleasure from that compared to the pain that is caused by it? The pain is huge, indescribably huge. This is al-hawa. Yes, there is pleasure in it. But what is that pleasure? And we're not even talking about the akhirah. How about the day when you meet Allah? How about the day when you are upbridled in sweat? How about the day when you'll be humiliated in front of all of humanity for following your hawa? How about the fire that will burn your skin, and Allah will recreate your skin, and the burned skin will burn it so you can taste the punishment? Is the desire, the pleasure of following your desire, equal to all of that? Think about it, brothers and sisters. This is what you need to do. Think about these realities. Okay? The joy of being virtuous and decent is greater than the pleasure in disobedience. Yes. The joy of being virtuous, the joy of restraining from your desires, itself is a pleasure that is greater than giving in to your whims and your desires and your passions. Okay? Another aspect that we need to think about is keeping one's good standing with Allah and in the hearts of the believers. Okay? Keeping one's good standing with Allah. When you follow your desires, it lowers your standing before Allah, before your Lord. And indeed, that is the case not only before Allah, but before all of the creation of Allah. Because you must have heard of the hadith, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves someone, He says to Jibreel, "Oh Jibreel, I love such and such a person." And then Jibreel goes and tells the angels. And Jibreel says, "Oh angels, Allah loves this person." And then the angels come down to the earth and they tell the creatures of the earth that Allah loves such and such a person, until the love of this person is established upon the earth. Even the creatures of the sea, the love of that person is established. Then Allah says to Jibreel, "I hate such and such a person." And then Jibreel tells the angels that Allah hates such and such a person. And the angels come down and they tell the creatures of the earth that Allah hates such a person, and the hatred of this person is established on the earth. What is the consequence, brothers and sisters, of following your desires? Okay? It is distancing yourself from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing I want you to think about is when you overcome your desires, you overcome your enemy. Think about the delight and the pleasure that there is in defeating and overcoming your enemy. Your enemy, of course, is Shaitan. And we'll come back to that again. I think there's another point to do with that. The other thing is the one who follows their desires is worse. The Quran refers to them as the Sharrul Bariyah, the worse than animals. Because the animal, that's all it can do. All the animal has is its desires. That's how Allah has created it. It eats, it drinks, it procreates. That's what it is, actually just obeying the command that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it. That's all the animals do. That's why Allah says they are like cattle. No, nay, they are worse than cattle. Why are the people who follow their desires worse? Because Allah has given us intellect, and Allah has given us deen, and Allah has given us fitrah, and Allah has supported us with the angel who advises. So all of these things, the animals don't have these things. So when you abandon your intellect and you abandon your deen, then you've done something that is worse than the animals. Okay? So this is the condition of the one who follows their passions and their desires. Okay? Being worse than the animals. And think of the consequence of following your desires and your passions. Al-Hawa. Think of the consequences of it. How many virtues do you miss? How many excellent deeds? How many opportunities to remember Allah, to worship Him, to do acts of goodness do you miss when you follow your desires? How many pleasures, true happiness is lost because of it? Okay? So for one pleasure, you lose many. How many people of good reputation, admired and respected, have been humiliated and laid low because they follow their desires? They follow their passions. Think about that. Do you want to be from them? And how about the humiliation on the Day of Judgment? Do we want to be humiliated like that in this life or the next? And think about another thing.